Welcome back to Buckets WNBA edition. I'm your host, Jim Turvey. We are back with a Family Friday. We've got Danielle Alvari. I think, is this the third time of the season? I think this is the third timers club here for Danielle. We'll do some of the fun stuff we've done with Danielle before in the second half of the episode. But Danielle, it's been a little while. How are things going for you?
Absolutely great. I do feel a little bit bad because I think before I hopped on, the producer said that you were expecting Danny Barlavi. So anybody who is upset about the Danny they got today, I really apologize for that.
It's the Danny Barlavi, Danielle Alvari mix up that we have definitely had before.
Classic.
No, I think this was all, maybe I misspoke to David, but we are going to have Danny on again at some point. I reached out to Danny last week when I did my solo, but they weren't able to do it. So we'll get them on another time soon. But
insult to injury, we are currently going head to head in fantasy right now, and it is not looking good for your girl. So
my goodness, how are we doing in that league? Yeah, I think you're doing better than I'm doing.
Yeah, Calvin sneakily kind of snuck into like the top 4 here at the end, but yeah, it's been kind of the top 2. It's like last year's WNBA race, kind of a boring top 2, not as exciting as this year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our good friend Andrew O'Connor Watts is having a good time in the league.
All the good Valkyrie players.
He was all about the Valks, and that was a very good call. We have Valks chatter there on the Friday slate, and then we've got some. We're gonna do some. Last time you were on, we put some predictions in the envelope. We're gonna metaphorical envelope. We're gonna poke around that envelope, and then we're gonna do a couple more predictions. I think that's a fun bit for us to have for Danielle Alvari, not Danny Barlavi. So. As we look at the Friday slate, we got 3 games, a little bit quieter than some of the slates we've had recently. We've had some nice big 5-game slates recently. This is a 3-game slate, and we only just got one line, and we still don't even have one of the other lines. So the best bet section might be a little bit briefer than normal. Episode as a whole, probably a little bit tighter on that small Friday slate, but hopefully we'll get you some good stuff here, get you a couple good bets and everything. So. Let's look over the Friday slate as we've been doing, kind of walk through the lines and the injuries and all that, kind of set the scene for folks. So first game of the night, we have Minnesota Lynx on a back-to-back at the Indiana Fever. The Fever are currently favored by 1.5. This just opened. They're 1.5 point dog at one book. They're 1.5 point favorite at the other. Not to spoil best bets too much, but we're both interested in the Lynx. So we'll talk through where we would play that too, where we think the line might go. Total there's 157.5. Fee is likely going to be questionable again. Other than that, relatively healthy for Lynx. Indiana, no questionables, but we now have Caitlin Clark out. We now have Ari McDonald out. We now have Sydney Colson out. We now most recently have Sophie Cunningham out for the season. So the injuries are stacking up in Indiana, which you hate to see, but they'll probably play a part in our capping that game. Second game of the night, we have Seattle Storm at the Dallas Wings. Storm are 7.5 point favorites, total 169. Seattle's fully healthy. Starting to turn the corner potentially a little bit there. We'll talk through that game. Dallas is without JJ Quinterly or Arike. And of course, I think since we last talked, Lee Yuru is out for the season as well. So they're now without Lee. Then final game of the night, Golden State Valkyries at Phoenix Mercury. There's like one of these like leaked lines that sometimes come through in the Action app. If you use the Action app, you'll see that they tend to be in the vicinity, but the no books actually have this out, but it's kind of saying 9.5 for Phoenix. Phoenix is playing Vegas right now. They're down by 6 in the first quarter. Total for this Golden State Valkyries game, maybe in like the high 150s. The behind the scenes thing is saying 158.5. Golden State also having injuries start to mount. They got Monique Billings remaining out. CC Zandalicini is now out. Ileana Repair, Carla Lake questionable. Phoenix side is healthy. They're playing right now, so you never know what happens in that game, but relatively healthy for the Phoenix Mercury. So all that groundwork being laid, Danielle, what are your best bets for the Friday slate?
I really liked Lynx here, and they were laying points, and now we're getting points here with them, which is, as always, suspicious. But if it tracks with the logic that we had beforehand, then I'm all good with it. The Lynx defense, high rebounding percentage, everything. I mean, this is obviously a higher caliber team than the Fever in general. And then, as you mentioned, like there's a curse on the guards from the Fever team right now. Yep. They're just so short-handed. I know you're going to dive into that a lot more later about what that looks like for the Fever future. But as for this game, like I liked the Lynx when they were laying points, even on the road. And like you said, like it would be great if we could get feedback at any moment here. I don't know if this is the game you need to rush her back for. But I liked the Lynx in this spot even before this line is now, giving us points with them. So I'm going to go with the Lynx in this spot.
Yeah, it's funny. We've got the, got to peek behind the curtain here. We've got the rundown doc where I put in the line, and it had been that kind of behind the scenes line. I think what it is that the sports books will have a number on like their back end, but they haven't posted it. But we pull for the Action Network app, we pull from the back end. So sometimes those numbers are there before they post. And it was saying Minnesota by 2.5, and both of us had Minnesota by 2.5 as a best bet. Now we're getting Minnesota by 1.5 point dogs. You and I both said smells a little funky, almost like when you're off by that much, it's like, oh, is there something we don't know? But this is a back-to-back from Minnesota. But I think Fee is likely to come back. We saw 2 games of her being doubtful, then a questionable. We're trending in the right direction. Even if not, I think there's a fair amount to like here from Minnesota. They've dropped 2 in a row, their first 2-game losing streak of the season. A couple tough losses. They're not really, in any sort of a threat to drop out of that top seed. But I think that they want to get feedback for some of this awards chatter. Maybe we'll touch on MVP at some point, but I think they want Fee to reestablish herself in that MVP position. A'ja Wilson, the way the Aces are playing, she's kind of putting herself back into that conversation right now. Every game that Fee misses is going to be a chance for, A'ja to really kind of build her resume. There's also a rematch of the Commissioner's Cup final where the Fever took care of business and actually beat the Lynx. We'll get to our predictions. Before we timed our predictions well, and we were right before the Commissioner's Cup. Both of us liked the Fever in that game. They did indeed pull out the win. I think it's a little mini revenge spot for that. And the biggest thing to me here is the stacking. This is a term that I think goes more into like betting football. I don't bet football all that much, but I think it came from that arena, if you will, where if there's like, one receiver out, it's worth, a point. If there's 2 receivers out, now it starts, and it builds on itself. And like you said, it's the guard position for the Fever. They really are struggling at the guard position. They had to sign Ari McDonald. Then she got hurt. Then Sydney Colson got hurt the same game. Now Sophie Cunningham. We still don't have Caitlin Clark. Their guard depth is getting really tested. Now Kelsey Mitchell has played outstanding. She had a career high the other night. We saw 38 points from her. But it took overtime to win against, I believe that was Dallas, a team that is, not even in the same, on the same planet as the Minnesota Lynx here. So the Lynx, we talked about it before, like they're kind of, they're the ETS superstars. They're 20-14 against the spread. They're good on the road. They're good at home. Doesn't really matter. I think this number is only going to move towards Minnesota. I'm kind of hoping that by the time people listen to this, it's still in the range. But listen, we both came on here and liked Minnesota minus 2.5. So especially if we get few news, I'll be on the Minnesota side of this almost certainly. Do you have any thoughts on like which way you think the number might move, or any thoughts on this game as a whole before we go?
I think if anything, I think it swings back. I can't see why it wouldn't. And I like a lot of the points you made too, especially about like, oh, Nafisa needs to get back in there if we're considering her for the MVP race. What makes me concerned, I mean, it feels like what makes me concerned is that Nafisa is not the kind of player who thinks about those things. Like I think that she thinks about the team, and that, that Lynx team is very team forward and is thinking revenge season and we have to make this about playoffs. So that makes me a little more like, I don't know if she's paying as close of attention to that. And I think that that would be only thing that worries me with that. And then I feel like so much deja vu when we talk about this game, not just because it is that rematch situation. And we talked about this with our predictions, but also you mentioned that the Lynx first time that they've lost 2 games in a row this season. And I'm like, is this 2020? Like they did this last year too. They don't make a habit of losing multiple games in a row. So if you're talking about 2 losses in a row, like this is basically a question of, do you think the Lynx are going to lose a 3rd game? Like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you talk about like, maybe Fee not thinking as much about the MVP. I think they're thinking about the 3rd game in a row, maybe even more than, the MVP.
Absolutely.
The 3 games in a row, that's the kind of thing that, seasons are long and people are able, hopefully fans are able to zoom out a little bit and like be like, oh, it's not a big deal. We still have the 1 seed. But it's hard not to when you're in the locker room being like, we can't drop 3 straight. Like that's not who we are. So I think that definitely, maybe money line is the play if it gets out to a Minnesota -3 or something like that. But it is one of those lines. It's like a rat line. It smells bad because I really don't see how you favor Indiana here with the injuries stacking up for them. They've played decently, but the last month or so, they're really only about, I think they're 9-6, but their net rating is like +1. That's like a pretty league average team. That's not a team that should be favored at home against the Lynx, Nafisa Collier or not, to be honest. So
and even with no Nafisa Collier, they have Natisha Heidemann.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave that at that for now. But I mean, she's been absolutely so helpful for this team, almost like a sixth person of the year type of
Almost,
helpful.
almost.
Uh, but I digress.
Let's go to the second game. You have a bet on this second game. I don't have anything here. Seattle at Dallas. You like the under in this game. What is it that has you eyeing the under here?
First of all, I recently moved to Phoenix, so I can bet on things,
Oh,
and
amazing.
that's part of what's going on here. Is I'm just so action excited, so part of that. But no, I looked at this game and it looked a little bit squirrely to me as far as like these numbers possibly. Uh, the Wings obviously just lost to the Sparks, but that was a 1 point loss, and 3 of their last 4 games have been 1 point decisions. One of those they did win, so they weren't all 1 point losses, but 1 point games here for a team that's out of contention and has nothing to play for. So you look at this, and the Storm are in a very precarious position as far as playoffs, like very much on the bubble, and the Wings are completely out of it. And so you're probably like, well, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. But at the same time, it's like, well, the Wings keep showing up and they're still trying to play. And so that's kind of interesting here. Also, that the Storm have only covered 4 of their last 17 games. They're middling so much, and you'd be so surprised to hear that probably that this is like a 500 team. But so many of their games they've lost by 5 points or fewer. I think it's a league high 9 games they've lost by 5 points or fewer. So with that in mind, the Wings are in these 1 point game situations, and the Storm are in a lot of these close call situations. And so even though one has so much more to play for, I don't hate like Wings points here, even though Wings at home for some reason is like not even as successful as Wings on the road.
Yeah.
I don't hate that +7, but instead I looked at the total. If this is around 169, that's kind of high. I mean, the totals we've seen for their games so far this season, 167.5 earlier this season, 166, 162, I believe all 3 went under. 3 unders in their last 10 games for the Storm, so that hasn't really been the trend. They've actually been hitting overs because obviously a more defensive-minded team than offensive, but 169 sounds too high, and I think that this happens a lot when the Storm play the Wings, and we just haven't seen it really tend to go over these totals.
Well, that's a really interesting point about all 3 of the games going under, and now we have Arike out. Arike out means under, because when Arike's in, she scores more, and she's not a great defender. So Arike out is great for the under. So I think that's a good look there. JJ Cornley is maybe on the other side. JJ Cornley is a great defender. So maybe it kind of cancels out. But again, this is a 1.5 higher, and all 3 games have gone under. So I think that's pretty interesting. I didn't have any looks there because I kind of was like, I think this is a squirrely game, and I'm good sitting out this squirrely game. But my final bet of the night, and again, this, like we said, it's a little bit of a late slate because we don't even have anything out for the final game. But I am going to be looking at, we don't have the stuff out yet, but I'm going to be looking at Temi Fagbenley's points and rebounds. The Valks are getting really shorthanded here. I think they only had 8 players healthy for last game, and now they have Carla Lake questionable. So they could, they'll probably figure out a way to sign someone if they really think it's coming down to it. You usually don't go with only 7 available. But last game, Temi only had played 15 minutes, but that was because she was in a lot of foul trouble. I think that if they are running out those 8 players again, I think she'll be more at like 26, 27 minutes. And I think that the books might not be able to quite catch it. I think they might drop the points. Looking at past recent games, not realizing that last game was foul trouble for Temi, and on top of that, they're very, very shorthanded. So I'm gonna be looking at Temi points and rebounds. We'll also be getting Phoenix on the back of a second half of back-to-back against the Vegas in a really big game. This Vegas Phoenix game is kind of low key for like the 4-5 seed. I kind of think these could be the 4 and 5, although Liberty are trying to move their way down the standings. I don't know if we'll talk about them later at all or not, but they lost to Chicago tonight in a loss that could potentially move them into the bottom half of the bracket and have to go on the road in the first round. It's going to be really interesting down the stretch here. I would probably lean towards the Valks if we do get 9.5 points here. That seems like a pretty big number for Phoenix on a back-to-back. They'll have to travel. It's like it's a back-to-back, but they're playing in Vegas tonight. That's a very short little trip, but it's still, you had to travel between games. So if we do get that 9.5, I'll probably be looking towards the Valks. They, even shorthanded, they give teams a really hard time. So any final thoughts on this slate here, Danielle?
Yeah, one thing I did look at that would be interesting, fun, and also feels kind of like sacrilegious as such a big WNBA fan to not talk about is Paige Beckers having this record-breaking game.
You were talking about Dallas and then totally zoned about it.
Yeah, like that felt just wrong. I mean, if Jim and I look cross-eyed during this too, it's because one eye is on like this other
Yeah.
aces and situation, because also sacrilegious to be ignoring that. But Paige Beckers, 44 points, most by a rookie in a WNBA season. How fun. Is there going to be regression after a game like that? I mean, you can get her, I think FanDuel plus 100 to get 20 or more points in this game versus Seattle, which I don't hate. I mean, she's averaging 19 point something this season. But if you wanted to look for something more fun, the Storm are last in offensive rebounding, total rebounding, second to last in defensive rebounding, like not really doing well in that category. And then on the flip side, Dallas is a little bit better, but ninth in the league in points per scoring attempt. So basically what I'm saying is there's going to be a lot of opportunities for rebounds.
Where are you going here?
Dallas is second in league in possessions per 40 minutes. Like there's going to be boards to have here. Maddie Siegrist at 6+ rebounds. You can get at plus 134, which is like something. Yeah. She had 9 last time out versus them, but Paige at 6 or more rebounds is plus 256. She doesn't do that all that often, but that would be like a fun play. And I think matches the script of the game a little.
I love those when you look at like two different players, both at plus money. Like you could play both of those. One hits, you're going to profit. I think those are often like a fun way to approach. I did that recently with the Dream for assists for Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray, and Ryan Howard had a great assist game. And then you don't have to even stress the other half. Sometimes you can, hit the second one, and then you're golden.
Totally.
I have to ask you, did you get your DoorDash special today?
What
did you not get DoorDash? So did you hear about this? When the first player to score 40 this year, you get $50 off a DoorDash order. You got to do it after this podcast.
Okay. Wow. Clutch. Yes, I have to. What?
My wife and I got sandwiches. Very boring, but it's one of those tricky things where it's like 50% off, like the amount it's like a semi 50% off.
Spend 100, save 50.
Yeah. So yeah, real big order. We went on the lesser side of that, got some good sandwiches, and got it delivered. So shout out DoorDash. You should absolutely use that code after we get off here. I don't think we'll do a same game parlay script, although I will say something with those rebounds in the Seattle Dallas game. I think is a really interesting look. I really like the pace plus bad rebounding plus bad offense. I think is a really good script for putting together a fun little same game parlay there. So we won't have an exact one today, but I think that's a pretty good one. We're going to go into recapping some of our previous predictions from the last time Danielle was on the pod, and then doing a few more. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about that football season is here. We've got preseason games tonight. When I went to open Amazon Prime to watch Liberty and Sky, I had to scroll over from the Patriots and Giants game. I was annoyed about that, but many people love football, and so we've got lots of improvements and updates coming in the award-winning Action Network app. Very excited to discuss in weeks ahead. So to get the most out of the app, you'll still need to be an Action Pro subscriber. So only with Action Pro do you get real-time picks from myself, Action Network crew. I believe Sean Kerner had a play recently. I'm not sure if he had one for tonight. I know some folks were looking at Steelers. Plus, you can get access to Action Pro projections powered by Sean Kerner and the predictive analytics team, plus lots of other benefits. Right now, Buckets WNBA listeners can save $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use the promo code Buckets20. That's actionnetwork.com/pro. Use the code Buckets20 for $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. All right, Danielle, let's recap our price. Let's open the envelope. No actual envelope, aka look into the.
Can we use a real envelope next time, Jim? This is kind of anticlimactic.
It really is, and I could do it on the. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll write down our predictions this time, and I'll put them in envelopes.
Put them in a hat. Okay, sorry.
No, I think an envelope is fun because you have to have the noise of opening it. For so many people do this on audio. You gotta get
it's like ASMR. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just hold it up to the microphone with a letter opener and get that real nice noise in there. But this time I don't have it. Yeah. We'll whisper our recap into the microphone. Give people the full experience here. So we kind of aligned, and I think you did this again this time, with our predictions kind of working together hand in hand. So I'll read both predictions and we can give ourselves a letter grade or just talk about how it went. For our first prediction, you had Caitlin Clark as the Commissioner's Cup MVP, and I said the current Commissioner's Cup champion, Indiana Fever, heading to a rematch with the Lynx, having won 6 straight to improve their record to an impressive 25-10, good for third in the W. So I think we can give this a B- because while none of that is actually true, none of the things we said happened, we were very much on track with it. So why don't you talk about it, and I'll look up some of the exact numbers over here.
That's such good teacher language too. That's such a nice way to say you were on the right track. I can't give you the A. You were on the right track.
I've been a teacher for a long time, so it is not surprising.
It's such a sweet, nice teacher there, like to us. We see the logic, we see the thinking. Yeah, the logic was there. Also, I was gonna give myself an I. Did you ever get an I, like an incomplete?
Oh, yeah,
because Caitlin Clark was not even able to play. So like
that's fair. That's very fair.
I get a redo on that one. No, but yeah. So, but yeah, I think we were both totally lined up on this. Indiana winning, and for that reason, like nothing I love better than a revenge fueled team. And if the Lynx aren't revenge fueled from last season, they are also about this. I mean, all of it. I love it. Just give them more fuel.
Yeah, exactly. So while Indiana is not 25-10 nor third in the W, they are 19-6. They've not won 6 in a row. They've won 1 game in a row. But I think that any Indiana fan would call, if you had told them when Caitlin went out and you said, you're not going to have her until today, and you said you're 19-6, I think they would be pretty content with it. So overall, us being high on the Fever and interested in them, certainly in that Commissioner's Cup game, which they did win. It was Natasha Howard who won MVP, because like you said, Caitlin didn't even play, so she wasn't, a viable option for that MVP. So I think that that's a decent first prediction. Now we'll use that to transition to the second one, where I don't think we can say it's decent, but I'm gonna stick up for us again, shockingly. So for our second prediction, it was centered around 6th player of the year. You had Natisha Heidemann as the one to keep an eye on, and I said Niara Sabli. I said her decision to stay in the U.S. instead of going to Eurobasket has made her the favorite in a wide open 6th player of the year race. And here's the only reason I'm going to say we're on the right track, is because it is a very wide open 6th player of the year race. And I think Natisha Heidemann should be getting way more credit than she is. She is the leading scorer off the bench by total points this season, and she's 100-1 at books right now. It doesn't really make any sense, to be honest.
No, she just helped them beat the Sparks with 18 points off the bench. Yeah. Like, this is she's such a glue player for this team, and I feel like that sometimes doesn't get enough shine.
Yeah, it's coalesced around Naz Hillman, who, if you listen to the pod or you follow in the app,
which is more than fair.
Yeah, and she has
more than fair. Yeah,
and I would sign off on her winning it in a heartbeat, including my.
You know what's crazy though?
What's that?
She could be playing as a starter for the rest of the season, and they'd still consider her for this, even though technically, 27 games of 44 is 60-something%. 60% of the games you were a 6th man, and the rest you were a starter. That feels rigged. It feels rigged.
I actually, as someone who is kind of rooting for Naz for my bank account, I actually am a little worried that if she stays starting the rest of the season, the narrative is going to be, oh, she was a starter too much. Whereas if she had started the first half of the season,
it is. I'm starting that narrative
the other way around. I think it would have helped her. So Jess Shepard is the other one who's a co-favorite. Jess is going to move back to the bench when Fee comes back, and also her stats I think are going to be hurt a little bit. I still don't think this 6th player of the year race is over. So.
What did you say Heidemann is at right now?
She's 100-1. Like, seems like a decent sprinkle if you want.
I know she's competing with her own teammate here, but she's
the leading scorer by total points off the bench this season, and it's not even really all that close. She's got by over 30 over a name that I'm going to say if you want to do the research and look it up, folks. I want to talk about this person potentially later in the week. They're not even listed right now. This person. I'll say it's Dominique Malanga is 2nd in points off the bench and would be a really fun player to give this award to. She's not even listed right now. I'm going to keep an eye for when she pops, because I think people would be really interested in that. Any final 6th player of the year thoughts, or should we move to our third prediction?
No, I said it before and I'll say it again.
It's
the same. I have nothing to add.
Our third prediction was centered around the end of the playoffs, kind of the 7, 8, 9 kind of race. You had Golden State to make the playoffs plus 200, which I think is very live. I was trying to look to see what the number would be for them right now. I think it would almost certainly be better than plus 200. So that I'm going to count that as a dub. And then I said 6 teams are basically a lock for the postseason. I think in my mind that was the 6 teams that are up there. And I said 2 are a lock for the lottery. I said, sorry, Chicago. And the other one being Connecticut. That is true. But then the end of this, we went off the rails a little bit. I said we have a very fun 5 teams for 2 spots race that includes both the Aces and the Wings. Well, the last few words there messed up everything. We do have a really fun final playoff spot race. It does not include the Aces, who have hit the turbo in the last few weeks, and it does not include the Wings, who have unsurprisingly, I should have listened to you on the preseason pod. Gone way under again. Disappointed me and their fans yet again. I think this is a win for you and a confusing, probably loss for me. But what are your thoughts on kind of the bottom of the season here?
Yours was much more detailed, so there was, more opportunity for there to be things that go haywire.
Last few words. I would have was all good until I said, even if I had said 18, I could have counted it. But wings, no, the wings.
Yeah.
My downfall.
It's very sweet that you wanted to believe in the Wings. I think I said on the preseason pod that the Wings had less identity than the Valkyries did, the brand new team of the league, and that's kind of what it looked like.
Yeah, I mean,
it ended up turning out that way. But you also were very high on the Sparks, I believe, and I was a little bit sheepish on them. And I think that the start of the season looked like I was kind of right about that, and then they've really turned a corner. So I'm glad that they're looking a little bit better. Obviously, this is probably going to lead into our next prediction that I made as well.
Your final prediction was Cam Brink comes back after the break, correct? But too late for the Sparks. Incorrect. She has been awesome, and they have been awesome, and they are one of those teams in that final race. My final prediction was very niche. I'm going to give myself a C on this one. So I said Aari McDonald has landed in Chicago. Fully wrong. Had the breakout season that seemed possible for several seasons. I think semi-right. And then I had her averaging. I went really, really specific. I said she's averaging 12.2 points, 2.5 rebounds, 4.3 assists, and 1.9 steals for a still very bad Chicago Sky team. So those numbers aren't right, but they aren't super far off. So she was with Indiana, of course, and she was averaging 10 points, 2.5 rebounds, 4.9 assists, and 1.3 steals. So really not too far off. The points were a little bit high. Obviously, she had lesser chance to score in Indiana. But my Aari McDonald stock is holding steady, and I think she is a legit player in this league who I want to see come back from injury and really take off. So thoughts on Cam Brink and Aari McDonald here?
I thought you were the nice teacher, Jim, and now I'm seeing that you are the tough grader. And you put these to the 10th digit. You went into the you didn't put she's going to be averaging 12.2, 2.5. Like, you really made it hard for yourself, and I think you actually kind of nailed it. And a breakout season for Aari, absolutely. Cam being back, too late for the Sparks. I might just say, I mean, this is going to contradict what I say later. It might be too late for the Sparks. We don't know yet.
We don't know.
We don't know yet.
That's actually, let's use that as a perfect little transition. I'll go to you first because your first prediction, and then what we're going to do is circle back. We didn't pin down the exact dates here, but sometime in September, probably during the playoffs. I targeted September 25th. Well, you and I can figure out if that works for you after the podcast.
Whenever it's making us look best, whenever our predictions look like the most right.
Brilliant. So your first prediction is
the Sparks will make the playoffs.
So there you go. So now you think it's too late. You don't think it's too late, but this is the bold prediction. That's why you're saying it here.
It is a prediction because it could still go either way. Like, there is a tight race here at the bottom. And so for that reason, I say Cam Brink came back. It's too late. It might be too late for the Sparks. I don't think it is. I think the Sparks will make the playoffs. The corner they turned has been incredible. I mean, how fun has Kelsey Plum been to watch this season? And her she's admitted like a new role for her to take on as more responsibility, especially her and Derek are getting to reunite and kind of having to hold down the fort until Cam could come back. And even we had Ray out for a little bit as well. And now we have so many of these players, Kelsey, Ray, Azare, I believe, too, like shooting incredibly from three, which maybe kind of lends itself to, we have this new coach, Lynn Roberts. She said the goal for this season was to make the playoffs. And I think that's still within reach for them here. Kelsey Plum, also, we have to shout out, since we shouted out Paige, tied Christy Tolliver for the Sparks single season record for made threes in a season, 81 threes this season, just 2 days ago. So not looking like they're slowing down, looking like they're speeding up at the right time. Jim probably knows I get to work some of these Sparks games, and it's really fun to see at the start of the game, they'll put up, the injury report for the teams, and they'll say like, and your Sparks are fully healthy, and the crowd will go wild, like the loudest they've been the whole game, just because it's really cool to have a team that's fully healthy right as we're heading into playoffs and heading into a situation where there's a 2.5 game gap between the 6 and the 10 seed, something like that. Like it's so tight. So I think the Sparks can do this. To do this, they need to beat the Storm on September 1st in Seattle. They're up in the season series 2-1, and they're half a game behind them now. So that is really going to, I think, be the linchpin for them there.
So I agree that is a very pivotal game. My first prediction centers around another team that could potentially be in that conversation that I don't think many people are thinking about right now. my bold prediction, I think this is pretty bold. I'm looking for a number to come out for this, and I'll probably bet it and post in the app. Caitlin and the Fever are on their second week of watching from the couch, plotting their revenge for next season after a brutal end of season schedule saw them miss the playoffs entirely. So there's a couple things happening here. Yeah, I've got the Fever out of the playoffs.
Timothy.
I think I could get like a plus 1,200 on this right now if I find it out there somewhere. So they have an incredibly tough schedule down the stretch. By far the toughest in the WNBA. 585 strength of schedule. Toughest remaining. They've got 3 games against Minnesota. You and I are both on them for Friday, for today. Then they've got 2 more against them. As we talked about in kind of the breakdown, that their last 15 games, they are 9-6. They've been surviving without Caitlin. But it's looking a little bit lucky if you go by net rating. I think they've gotten, they got that big overtime comeback win the other day. I just don't think that this team, again, these injuries are stacking up and making it very difficult. Those injuries, we talk about stacking game to game. It also stacks on top of each other as the season goes along, because you're getting more wear and tear on Kelsey. She's having to do more every single game. That sort of thing wears you down. Here's the big thing though. The tiebreakers. So I played out the season just kind of looking at kind of loosely predicting everyone's wins for the rest of the season. I had Golden State, LA, and Indy all land on 22 wins. If that happens, Indiana's big trouble, because the tiebreaker there is they combine your record against the 2 other teams and have that be a tiebreaker. They are 0-5 combined against Golden State and LA. So if it's a 3-way tiebreaker, that's bad news for them. Even if it's just a single tiebreaker against LA or Golden State, they're losing both of those. It could be really bad news for Indiana. I think that they are a team that no one's really talking about missing the playoffs. I think there's a decent chance that the Valkyries get in, the Sparks get in, the Storm get in, the Mystics fall off. That we saw them lose to Connecticut tonight. I think they're probably out of the postseason. And then it's the Fever. Now, this could all change if we hear Caitlin's coming back soon. I think that would be enough to kind of steady the ship and keep them from like a full collapse.
Especially combined with like Aaliyah, and there's enough pieces there.
Definitely. But I think that this is a prediction that is, I would make in comparison to a market. Basically, I think that no one is really considering this as a thing. It obviously is not a very likely thing, but I think it is a possible thing, and a thing that I think is probably more likely than bookmakers or an average fan would think. Is this fully crazy that I go too insane on the first one, or do you see kind of through the fog a possibility of it happening?
No, I mean, Fever are sitting in that 6th spot, but super injured, as you pointed out. Caitlin Clark coming back is a huge. What is that going to look like? Because again, what has she been dealing with? A soft tissue injury, and then I heard like an ankle bruise practicing just the other day. Like, and why? Like, if you're going to just miss playoffs this year, like, should you just set your sights on next season? So I think you went full Taylor Swift mastermind on that one, and I feel like it was like when you're playing like pinball and you're watching the ball fall down and all of the possible things that could hit, and there is a giant black hole here for this Fever team where it's like 0-5 against these other teams that you are possibly stacking up against. So very possible.
Wow, the pinball metaphor. I did not see that coming, but I absolutely love it. I got to get back to it. There's some really good pinball bars in New York. Anyone who lives in the city, that just made me think of some fun nights playing pinball in the city.
I played on the computer. You remember? Like the pinball.
I definitely. I mean, I remember growing up. Yeah, that was like I'd steal my dad's work computer and play pinball on that. Yeah, the purple. Like, yep. I'll light them up. Yeah.
Speaking
very
of
good
purple. That leads me into my last prediction.
Look at the transitions, master. All right, take it away.
Both of my predictions are about purple things. That's excellent. Sparks are going to make the playoffs. And for my bank account, Natalie Nakase to win Coach of the Year. I was out in Phoenix earlier this year, and in July, I grabbed this at, I think, 3-1, which is not a crazy number, but I put an unsafe amount of money. No, it's fine. A safe amount. Always gamble safely. About money on it because I was so hype on this. And I still think that it looks very good. So Natalie Nakase to win Coach of the Year with the Valks. Love that.
Yeah, I think this pivots basically entirely on if they get into the postseason. Now, I think if the Atlanta Dream hold on to the 2 seed, I think it could be interesting. But I think if you bring an expansion team to over 500 and into the playoffs, and they're going to have so many tight, important games late that like the narrative's going to be really hard to deny if they get into the postseason.
Here's something maybe not as germane as all of the statistics and the finishing. Natalie Nakase in the first season of a brand new franchise, and a franchise that was just ripping attendance records this year. They sold out all 16 hold games. female head coach. I just think all the optics are there for this one as well, as far as what looks the best too. But Carl has been absolutely incredible with the Dream as well. So
100%. And I know I've had on the past, we talked about, whether WNBA voters vote differently than NBA voters, and if they would prefer to have a woman win the award. Historically, it actually hasn't panned out that way. We've still seen that.
I hate to hear that, but I'm sure it's true.
But I do think voter bases can change over time, and more than that, I think Natalie has been the best coach of the year, and that is what
Agree.
I think that WNBA voters are. Yeah, they have their blind spots, I'm sure, but I think that they, especially when it comes like MVP, they're actually much better at picking the true winner than other leagues. So
if there's a league that's more meritocracy, it's this one.
Agreed. My second prediction is, after a crazy last few weeks of the season for the playoff push, we have a very predictable Final Four with Atlanta hosting New York and Minnesota hosting Las Vegas. So this is a little bit of a zag from where me and Dano have been for a lot of this season, being on the Phoenix train, really thinking they could be in there. But to me, it's kind of shaping up as Minnesota taking holding on to the top seed, Atlanta and New York in 2 and 3. Now, New York's got to get things together, but I think Stewie said she's going to be back before her birthday, which is like in a couple days. So I think Stewie will be back soon. I think that'll be enough to stabilize the ship. They've got a really easy schedule down the stretch. Phoenix and Las Vegas are playing right now. Vegas is up 14 at the half. This is the number one Vegas hater pod. We have been a Vegas hater pod since the days of Maria Marino and myself picking against them 2 years ago. Last year, Dano and I crapping on them every chance we got this year. This is the Vegas hater pod. All that being said, it does seem that whatever tweak they made midseason, whether it's picking up Nelissa Smith, whether it's moving Jewel to the bench, whether it was just kind of everything taking a little while to coalesce, they look better than Phoenix right now. I don't think it's shocking that they're handling their business against Phoenix. This game basically would lock in the tiebreaker for them. I think that they will hold on to home court advantage, and I think that they will be in the Final Four. Now, do I think that they will win the title? I still don't really have that as the Vegas outcome. But every game that New York loses and looks a little bit more meh, if Minnesota keeps holding out Fee, the questions can be raised. I think that Atlanta in the playoffs are going to drop a little bit. They're going to come back to earth a little bit. I think people are going to be able to scheme for them. I still think Minnesota is probably the favorite right now, with New York right behind. But I would have Vegas probably in that third spot, which I have not been on that corner before. And maybe I'm a prisoner of this winning streak. But I do think that the way that things have looked in this winning streak has made me shuffle around my standings a little bit. So do you see this being the Final Four, or do you see some crazy teams making runs because it's been a crazy season in general? What is your kind of look at, if you pull out the crystal ball looking at the postseason?
I wonder if we are underestimating the Mercury. Their head coach was the favorite for that head coach in, I believe, June or July for a reason. I'm big on coaching, especially in the W. It doesn't apply for me as much in the NBA, but it does in the W. I think that's evidenced by how the Valkyries have looked this year, and on the opposite side, how the Wings have looked. No offense, sorry, coach. So I do wonder if we're underestimating where Phoenix might be push-wise at the end here.
No, and Phoenix is the team that...
And they have the easiest schedule, right? Left? Don't they have one of the easiest schedules coming up?
I do think they have an easier schedule. I am starting to worry a little. The doubts that are maybe unfairly, but the Alyssa Thomas in the postseason, where you kind of, the shooting, it's a little bit like the hustle and stuff, like the hustle and coaching stuff goes away a little bit. Now they have some great shooters, but like Monique Makoakani, who's one of my favorite players, that's a rookie. She's shooting 40 something +%. Now maybe she's played in big games overseas and I'm going to laugh and say, wow, you're an idiot to doubt her, even though she is a rookie. But I think that I'm seeing cracks in my Phoenix love, not the love of them, but my belief, I guess is a better word. So yeah. I think I'm coming around to those four being my Final Four. With Minnesota, I do think, until we see a healthy New York, Minnesota being, kind of in the tier of their own, even without Fee right now, because that's an ankle injury. Ankle injuries are, not nearly as, re-aggravate those nearly as often. So I think Minnesota is in their own tier. Do you have a third prediction, or were you just rocking the two for now?
I'm rocking the two. I was just noting though that it's so not fun that Stewie's out right now, Fee's out right now. Caitlin Clark is out right now, and with just even those 3 big wild cards there, I mean, not wild cards, we know what to expect from these players, but it can just do so many things to shake up this playoff picture and what this is going to look like. Not necessarily at the top.
Well, you like Dwayne Wade on the fast break to my LeBron James. Just laid up the ball. I'm coming in behind to dunk it home. Prediction number 3: after a regular season marred by injuries, knocking on all the wood here, and I'm honestly just kind of wish casting this. The final 4 are basically entirely intact, with Stewie Fee and Jordan Canada all having returned to help their teams to this spot. So maybe this is just me trying to manifest, try to speak it into existence. But I think that some of these injuries, there could be some in the postseason for sure, but theoretically, Stewie and Fee are getting healthy around the right time that they want to be getting back with their teams, getting healthy, starting to go towards the postseason, get into a groove. Even Jordan Canada should be back before the end of the regular season. 3 really big pieces for 3 teams that I see in the Final Four. So again, this is maybe not a prediction as much as I'm just trying to speak it into existence.
With Stewie on my fantasy team and a diehard UCLA fan, Jordan Canada finally hitting her stride, finding the right spot for herself. I love to hear this. It's gonna be crazy. I'm just now like wondering if I should add a prediction here about Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
And will it be unanimous?
Okay. Yes.
Will it be unanimous? Because it will be contentious if it is. I believe.
You think maybe a Washington beat reporter or 2 might throw a bone to Sonia or Kiki?
I'm not saying anything specific.
Danielle, maybe with a little extra knowledge on the situation here?
No, my prediction was, I mean, it's not that exciting of one. It's not a long shot or anything, but I think that, we could see obviously Paige winning Rookie of the Year, but we could see a unanimous vote, and we did not get that last season. So
I see what you're saying. I promise, Dano, I
like to just poke the bear a little bit.
I
from a safe distance,
and then realized that every single person on the internet was poking the same bear with me, and so I tried to back off because the
bear will attack. Yes,
Dano and I talked recently about which player we would take if we were building our team today, and I went with Paige and he went with Caitlin. So of course I commented last night, which was not received well. The timing of it was called into question, which was very fair. So 2 great.
But that so suits your personalities. That suits your personalities here, so that makes sense.
Exactly. I'm gonna throw out a couple more random predictions on the way out. That between now and then, I think the Sun are gonna play spoiler in a couple games down the stretch. I had this written down before they won tonight. Tonight wasn't really spoiler. This Sun team's actually kind of good. I'm really interested to see the future there. Layla Lacan is like, since Layla Lacan joined the team, they're like kind of a middle of the pack defense in the W with like a slightly below average offense. They're better than like 3 or 4 teams in the W. If you're betting them, I was talking to someone on Twitter today who was like, "Oh, I took the Mystics money line. What was I thinking?" Yeah, avoid fading Connecticut as much as you think. I think Connecticut's going to have a spunky win or 2. I think actually the future there is vaguely intriguing. I think we're going to get a second DoorDash game, which apparently I'm just informing Danielle what that means. But I think we get another 40 piece. I'm saying from Asia this time. That part of it's not too surprising. But I think we'll get another one of those. And then I think the Valks playoff spot, which I'm predicting, locks in awards for Natalie Nakase, as you were on, and Veronica Burton as well. I think it will win Veronica Burton Most Improved Player, especially if she's able to keep this up with them shorthanded. She had an incredible game. Their most recent time out with 14 assists, I think like 24 points. So any thoughts on those final bonus predictions? You want to throw out a name that you think would be the next to score 40 in a game?
No,
I'm putting you super on the spot with no prep whatsoever.
The Valks to make it to playoffs, obviously Nakase, Burton, all of that. I love that. Just ties the whole thing up with a really nice bow, and it's just it really sets the bar really high because we have 2 more teams joining next season, and the Valkyries really couldn't have had a better season, especially if they can get that cherry on top and make the playoffs and just have all of those last pieces fall into place. So I'd love to see that, and I think it's more than earned. Like we said, it's not even like that's not really wishful thinking at this point. It just feels like they need to just close that deal. It'd be so cool to see for their first like inaugural season. And then your Sun takes I love as well, because I'm hearing it and I think many people used to joke that the Connecticut Sun were always the bridesmaid because they were always in these finals and not winning, and Alyssa Thomas was on that team, and maybe there's just like they got to a place where they needed to just completely blow it up and start over, and they just got their fresh start, and like maybe Layla is their new healthy like person, and now they're just, it's looking so good for them, and the future is bright there.
Yeah, and maybe a new city to be playing in and land fast would be nice. So
yes,
we will see.
Yes, that would be great.
All right. I think that wraps us up. If you'd like to tail any of the bets we talked about today, look for them in the quick slip links in the episode description. We'll also be posting those in the Action Network app. At least I will. Maybe I'll post Danielle's as well. So if you're not following there, go check that out. Obviously, download the app if you haven't. Like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Rate and review if you are listening to podcasts. My thanks to David Payne on the audio and Gifford Gould on the YouTube side. For Danielle and myself, let's get buckets.